All right, man, peace. So, brothers, I just want to shine a little light on the story of Miss Brandy Odom, who was a so-called young black woman who was found not only killed, but dismembered in Canarsie Park in Brooklyn, New York. And the reason why I want to shine a little light on it is to once again accentuate that you must always know exactly who the person is that you're with or that you're trying to associate with. Obviously, in regards to many of the younger black women, they also have to make sure that they're aware of their associations. But my channel's geared towards the so-called black man. Because for the most part, just to be real, the modern day so-called black woman is mostly liberal. And most so-called liberal women do not want to be told anything about who they should be associating or affiliating with, because they feel like they know everything and that they can handle themselves. So I make many of these videos for you younger brothers because many of you get caught up in a bad situation because you get drawn into the web of a woman living this so-called fast life. And to be quite frank with you, just growing up how I grew up and seeing the things that I've seen and knowing the things that I know, when things like this happen to people, getting found not only killed but dismembered, is normally because they were caught up in the fast life. But anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Good evening, I'm Christine Johnson.
I'm Maurice Dubois. We begin with that mystery in a Brooklyn park. The remains of a young woman discovered, but investigators still don't know who did it or why.
CBS 2's Andrea Grimes live now from the park with the very latest for us. Andrea.
Christina Maurice, it has been an agonizing few days for the mother of this woman whose body parts were literally discarded in the park behind me.
Now, I did a video a while ago called That Dating App Just Might Be a Trap. I believe it was volume 1. And in that entry in that series, 2 stories were covered, in which in the first story, there were people being set up and robbed because they were going through so-called dating apps. And in the second story, there was a female in Japan who was not only killed but also dismembered. Is it a possibility that this young female, Brandy Odom, was just a young woman looking for a consort, a boyfriend, a potential husband, so on and so forth, on some type of dating app and ran into the wrong person? Yeah, that's a possibility. Is it a possibility that she was hanging out one Friday or Saturday night and met a dude at a bar or at a club and thought that that was somebody that she wanted to get to know, and he ended up being a psycho? That's a slight possibility, sure. But in situations like this, for the most part, where people end up getting killed and dismembered, especially in the so-called black community, it's normally because they're associated with the drug game. I'm just going to be real about it. I'm not saying that that's the case with her, but that's normally the case in the so-called black community. When a female especially gets found dismembered, is because she was associated with the wrong people, and certain rivals of those people that she was affiliating with thought that she had information that maybe she didn't really have, and they said to themselves that she can't talk. So not only are we going to dispatch her, but we're going to send a message. And if that's the case, that's very unfortunate. But point being, brothers, especially with many of these younger liberal women, they're willing to do anything for money. So you always make sure that you investigate what's going on in the periphery of the people whose lives you're associating with, and also within your life. Hopefully none of you brothers get caught up in that fast life, because it does not end well.
She told me her daughter was in the process of trying to become a school safety agent when she was murdered.
I don't know who could possibly want to hurt her the way that they hurt her, because this was brutal.
Yes, it was. It looked like someone was trying to send a message. Not only did they kill your daughter, but they dismembered her and they left her body parts pretty much out in the open to be found. So, from what I see, whoever it was trying to send a message.
What they did to my kid.
Nicole Odom says she's living a nightmare she never could have imagined. Her 26-year-old daughter, Brandy Odom, identified as the woman whose dismembered body was found dumped in Canarsie Park.
I'm still in a state of shock. I'm still not really believing that I just went and ID'd my daughter to.
I can imagine. I can imagine how bad that must be.
A woman walking her dog made the gruesome discovery Monday evening. Part of a naked body covered in leaves, the face bruised and swollen. Police sources say the arms and legs had been cut off and found nearby.
Now, it said that the face and the body was bruised and swollen, so obviously they beat the sister before they killed her. And then they realized that they were going to have to dispatch the body. Could it have been an abusive, quote unquote, so-called boyfriend who just went over the edge? That's a possibility. You have things like that occur. And so-called, quote unquote, crimes of passion, where many of these men, they have demons that jump on them. And that's why I tell a lot of you brothers, if you feel like you have that spirit jumping on you where you want to do something in regards to physical harm because you believe or you feel like the female is afflicting you, you got to cut that woman off, man. You cannot allow the female to bring out that type of a spirit within you, because it's not worth it in the long run. And you are going to be judged for that when your time comes. You have to know what to allow in your life and what not to allow in your life, because I know that for a fact. A lot of these so-called modern day liberal women, they have a lot of demons on them, and they're looking for someone to share their demons with. You have to decipher that, discern that early, and cut them off expeditiously, immediately. Do not get into that back and forth bickering. That shit is not cute. It's not what's hot in the streets. It's none of that. As soon as a bitch is showing you that she's not trying to bring positive energy into your life, you cut her off immediately. Bottom line. A lot of you guys allow yourself to get caught up in this dynamic where you're bickering and arguing with the woman. The shit escalates. Next thing you know, she's keying your car. She's throwing rocks through your window and all this other nonsense, slashing your tires. You find her beating her ass down. Next thing you know, you go too far. God forbid you killed the woman. Now you have to dismember the body parts and all this craziness. You have to nip that shit in the bud when you feel or suspect that your relationship is starting to go awry. That's just covering the scenario where possibly she had a relationship with someone and it wasn't working. But to be quite frank with you, I don't think that's what it was, because as we all know, the police are able to access her text records. And if they believed that it was something like that, there would have been some type of a back and forth in her text where she was saying that she was going to be meeting her man or her boyfriend or some new guy. So it would not surprise me if this was a drug situation.
Odom says she had no idea her daughter was in any trouble until yesterday, when the family saw a news report mentioning the unidentified body had a distinctive tattoo.
I said, I'm going to the precinct to make sure that this is not my kid.
And from what I read, I believe that the distinctive tattoo that she's referring to is chocolate above the left breast of her daughter. That's nothing, brothers. I mean, look, you do what you want. You date who you want. But these chicks that get tattoos on their neck and on their breasts and all that other stuff, that's barely concubine material. And I don't know if you want to have a child with a chick like that. Brothers, that's why I accentuate constantly on my channel that the so-called black man has to scrutinize who he's impregnating, who he's having children with. I'm not blaming the so-called young black woman in question, Brandy Odom. I'm not trying to assail her character or anything like that. I don't know her from a can of paint. But this story, this situation, normally is due to associations. And I'm going to leave it at that.
But in her gut, she says she knew it was. Police sources believe Brandy was killed and dismembered someplace else, then dumped here.
We ask today, God, for your strength. We ask for your comfort.
Tonight.
Now look at the Caucasian police right there to the left. They do not want to be involved in any type of prayer group over this. And from what I understand, the mother claims that the police don't care. I believe that what's really going on is that the police suspect the same thing that I suspect, which is that her daughter may have gotten caught up in the so-called drug game. But just in general, the police don't care about solving crimes. Please understand that. Their job is to make arrests and to tax the citizens. That's their job. And I tell you guys this all the time. It is not their job. It is not their intent to actually solve crimes. It's their job to make arrests. That's how they get evaluated. Because this society is a commercial society. They could care less about, especially about a so-called young black woman found dismembered in a park.
Tonight, a vigil was held across from the park on Seaview Avenue, as many in the community try to grapple with the murder.
We have to be diligent with regards to getting whoever committed this crime arrested.
Police and loved ones are still in search of so many answers. Who would want to do this to your daughter?
That's the same question that I'm trying to ask myself, because my daughter was a loving child. She was sweet. She didn't have any enemies.
Well, not that you know of. She didn't have any enemies that you know of. But in life, I really don't care how good a person you are. You are going to come across people who are more determined to become your adversary than you will be to be their friend or their compatriot. That's just life, unfortunately. certain people are just born with a negative spirit, or they're just born with a spirit that is going to come against yours. So hopefully you know how to handle those situations and those issues. In regards to Miss Brandy Odom, hopefully she's resting in peace to await her judgment. But the circumstances of her demise, they just seem to indicate to me, from what I understand and from my experience, just growing up a certain way and growing up around certain people, that she had the wrong affiliations, the wrong associations. They wanted information from her that she was not willing to provide, and they most likely just wanted to make an example out of her, unfortunately for her.
At this point, it is unclear if Brandy Odom was targeted at random or if she knew her killer. A $2,500 reward is being offered for information in the case, and another vigil is set for tomorrow night inside the park at 7 o'clock. Reporting live in Canarsie, Brooklyn, Andrea Grimes, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Andrea.
Now, can you imagine that? A young lady found killed and dismembered in a park, and for information, they're only going to give you $2,500. Wow. Shows you they could care less about solving that quote-unquote crime. But anyway, brothers, once again, just please be very aware of not only how you conduct yourself, but who you associate with and who their associates are, because there's always a trickle-down effect. But anyway, peace.